Alright, so today I want to show you 5 different types of snake egg incubators that you can use to incubate your ball python eggs or other type of reptile eggs if you're breeding reptiles. And one of the things that kind of brought it to my attention, I was actually doing a live stream this last weekend and someone asked this question. They said, hey, I'm breeding ball pythons for the first time this year and my female just laid a big clutch of eggs and I don't have an incubator. What should I do with these ball python eggs? And let me tell you, if you're breeding any type of a reptile or ball python, you definitely need an incubator before your females start laying eggs. As a matter of fact, you should probably have an incubator that's already all dialed in with all the temperatures and everything, so you have everything precisely set before your females start laying eggs. So you're just ready to go. You can actually put them right in the incubator. And the ones I want to show you today, I want to start out with the incubator that I actually built for my collection here. I actually use a 6-foot tall beverage cooler that I modified into a snake egg incubator. It's really easy to modify. Really, any type of a beverage cooler or a fridge or something like that, I'll actually show you how to do that. Another one I want to show you is a really expensive incubator. It's probably the most expensive incubator that they actually make, and that is the Arcom incubators. I actually have a chicken egg incubator, and that thing is pretty amazing. It's all automatic. You just hit the button and everything is completely automatic. And they actually make a similar incubator for reptiles instead of chickens. But let me tell you, they don't hold many eggs and they're really super expensive, but they're completely hands-off and all automatic, which is pretty awesome. Another one I want to show you is I actually have this little tiny cooler that actually cools and heats. You can use it as an incubator, you can use it as a beverage cooler, you can use it as a whole bunch of different things. That thing is pretty amazing as far as the technology that's built into that unit. The other one I want to show you is I actually have an incubator that I got from one of my old jobs when they were cleaning out a laboratory and they were just like getting rid of everything. I actually pulled up an old scientific incubator that they gave me for free, which is pretty awesome. You can actually use that as a snake egg incubator. And the other one I want to show you right at the end is one that you can make really super easy, really cheap, and really fast, especially if you have snake eggs and you don't know what to do with them and you don't have a whole lot of money to buy an incubator. Let me tell you, you can put this together for relatively little money to actually just jump into it and make something real quick as far as putting something together real quick. So I'm going to jump over and I'm going to show you, I'm going to start with my incubator, my 6-foot tall beverage cooler, which is pretty awesome. I've probably hatched hundreds of hatchlings out of that one. It's a pretty awesome incubator. Alright, so take a look at this. This is my 6-foot tall beverage cooler that I converted into a snake egg incubator. This thing's been working fantastic. And I actually found it over on Craigslist. The guy that originally bought this actually bought it with a bad compressor. And I think he paid like maybe $400 or $500 for it. And then since the compressor was bad, he just listed it over on Craigslist. I think I picked it up for like $100 or something like that. Really super cheap. And I've been using it for maybe about 5 years or something like that, and it still smells brand new. Like, kind of has that plastic smell, almost like a new car smell when you open it up, which is pretty amazing. Even though I've had some really funky snake eggs in there that went bad, and it smells really bad sometimes when you get those bad eggs, but now it smells fantastic. So essentially what I did to convert this to an incubator, what I did is I went actually underneath where all the electronics are, and I unplugged every single plug that I could find, so that it actually had a big fan up on the top that I unplugged. I unplugged the compressor so it wouldn't accidentally come on in case the compressor comes on. You definitely don't want it to cool. And I unplugged all the electronics and had a little digital readout on the bottom. The only thing that I left connected were the lights. It actually has this light up on top. It actually has a couple switches for the lights on top and the LEDs in the side, which is pretty awesome. And then the other thing I did is I actually came in here and added these heat strips over here. So I actually had my ball pythons in glass enclosures when I first started in ball pythons. And since I moved my ball pythons over to the rack, I actually had these little heat strips left over that I really wasn't using. So I put one in the back and then another one on the bottom in the back, and I plugged it into a heat controller. And then when I first cranked it up, I found that the heat wasn't really distributed very well in this incubator. So back by it seemed like it was a little bit warmer back here and not as warm up front. So then what I did is I actually went over to reptilebasics.com, and they actually have these rolls of this heat strip, and they can cut them to any size. You can get them for any width, and they'll actually put plugs on them where you can just plug them right into your power strip. And I actually put one on either side, and they fit in here perfect. So I took all the heat strips and I plugged them into this power strip, and then I took the power strip and I plugged it into a VE300, and that's what I've been using to control the temperature inside the incubator. And then I found, after a while, I actually found, when I had it all set up, I found that the temperature on the bottom of the incubator was a little bit colder than the top because all the heat would rise to the top. So then what I did is I actually added this little electronic fan down here. You can actually see it's just one of these tiny little fans. And originally I actually had 2 fans underneath there to move the air, and one summer it was actually pretty warm down here in the basement, and this kept overheating. I was like, what in the world is going on? And I found out that these fans will actually increase the heat in here and move the temperature above the set point, and my alarms kept going off, and I was like scratching my head. I finally just cut back just down to 1 fan, and it's been working fantastic. But what you can actually do, you can actually just take the heat strips, a fan, and a heat controller, and a power strip, and run it to pretty much anything. I've actually seen really small coolers. I've seen a lot of people, as a matter of fact, this one has a glass door, and a lot of people recommend not using a glass door because it doesn't have the insulation power that you'd see like in a refrigerator with a really thick door. I've seen people have even better luck with using a completely enclosed refrigerator with the solid front door instead of the glass door. The other thing that kind of got me when I first started with this is I actually had the whole thing angled at a different angle, and the sun would come in the window and go through the glass, and it would heat up certain levels of eggs in here. So I had certain ones that would hatch on the bottom. They would hatch earlier than the rest. I was like, what in the world is going on? I finally found out that it was the sun coming and heating those a little bit and increasing the temperature, which actually will make your eggs hatch sooner. You really want a better control over this. So if you have a glass door, you definitely want to keep it away from any direct sun coming in there. But that is a really awesome incubator. And kind of the weird thing is last year the temperatures were just a little bit off. This year I increased the temperature of my strips to 92 degrees, and then I took a little temperature probe and I moved it all around from shelf to shelf, from front to back, and I found pretty much everywhere in here there's a temperature anywhere from 88 degrees to 90 degrees throughout the whole thing once it equilibrates. And then the other thing I actually use these little shoe boxes. And this is the thing that really saved me when I first started out. What I was actually trying to do is I was trying to increase the humidity of the whole incubator, which is pretty problematic, trying to get the humidity in here kind of dialed into a really high humidity. So what I actually went to is I went to these little shoe boxes, and I use 150 grams of water, 150 grams of vermiculite, and then I mix that up really good, and then I put this little egg crate right on top of the vermiculite with the water, and then I'll put the eggs right on top of this egg crate, put some press and seal on the top, and then I'll put the cover on. And essentially what that does is that'll keep the humidity in here like at almost 100% with no ventilation. I don't put any ventilation, no holes in the sides, no holes in the vermiculite, no problems with running out of air, which is kind of weird in this setup. But you can actually take a box like this, and if you have the humidity really high in the box, then you can use pretty much any incubator, and you don't have to worry about the humidity. All you have to do is just dial in the temperature on this. So this thing has been working fantastic. I've been using it for quite a few years, and it's been hatching a lot of snakes out of that incubator. All right, so here's another incubator. This one's actually designed to hatch reptile eggs. This is actually a Reptile 6000, and they have a whole bunch of different brand names and different styles. They all look pretty similar to this. I think the prices are anywhere from like $150 to about $180 or something like that. And this thing is pretty amazing. Essentially what it is, it heats and cools in one unit, but you can see it's not really that big. You can put maybe one, maybe two clutches of ball python eggs in there. If you're doing something like geckos or something like that, you know, or really small snakes, you could probably hatch a whole bunch of snakes in there. And essentially what it is it actually has a digital display where it shows the current temperature, and then you can actually go down in temperature. This will actually go all the way down to 36 degrees as far as the low temperature, so it'll get really cold. And then if you actually scroll up in the temperature, let's see, I think it maxes out, I think it's over 100 degrees, which is kind of crazy. This will actually go all the way up to 140 degrees, which is really super hot. So I've never actually kind of pushed it to 140 degrees, but what I'll actually do is I'll bring it down to like 40 degrees, and I'll put beverages in there use it as a beverage cooler in the off season, which is pretty cool. And then I'll actually bring it up to about 60 degrees, and at 60 degrees I actually use it to hold my chicken hatching eggs. So if you actually are storing up your chicken hatching eggs before you put them in the incubator, a lot of people say that if you actually hold them at 60 degrees, that'll keep them the fertilest for the longest without actually incubating the eggs. That's the temperature, like the pre-incubation temperature, so you can keep collecting eggs for your incubator. And then you can actually bring it up to like 88 or 90 degrees for ball python eggs, and then you can actually go up to like 99 degrees for chicken eggs. You can hatch chicken eggs in there. Of course, with chicken eggs you'd have to actually turn them manually to hatch them that way, but you can use it for so many different things. It's pretty amazing. And the other thing I noticed on this is that the temperature readout doesn't really work as accurate as you would think. So what I would actually recommend is putting a different like a temperature probe inside of there, one that you can have a real easy readout. So a lot of times, you know, I'll set it at 60 degrees or something like that, and I'll actually put the probe in there, and it'll show like, you know, 57 or 56 degrees, and then what I'll do is I'll increase this until the temperature inside corresponds with my temperature probe inside. For some reason it's not very accurate. It's like these aren't calibrated very good. Just so if you're actually getting into this, you know, if you actually dial it in to 88 degrees for ball python eggs, it probably won't be 88 inside, and you'll have to slowly adjust this up and down until you can dial it in to 88 degrees. But other than that, it's been working. I actually love these little things. It has a little light inside where you can turn the little blue light on, and it's real simple with just an up and down and just a power button. It really works really fantastic. Alright, so take a look at this. This is the best of the best of the best if you want to hatch out some chicken eggs. This is actually an Arcom Pro 50, which is pretty crazy. Actually, I think I paid about $500 and some for this. I actually went over on eBay, and they're selling for $950 now. I don't know what's going on with these, but they are like super, super expensive. And one of the things I like about this is that you'll spend a lot of money on it, but you can recoup your investment. So let me tell you, I could probably sell this and make a few $100 now that I actually bought this thing, which is kind of crazy. And this, essentially what it is the cover comes off, and then they actually have some for reptile eggs. So it's a little bit different for the ones with the reptile eggs because you actually don't have the turning mechanism down on the bottom. So essentially what it is for chicken eggs, you actually have this tray on the bottom that moves back and forth to turn the eggs, and then you have different size inserts, like this one's for chicken eggs, and then you have like goose eggs and quail eggs, the different size inserts, and then you just put them in there, and then you just choose your bird. So you can actually come in here. So for example, this one's actually on the chicken setting, so you can actually go in here and choose duck or quail, pheasant, peacock, wild goose. It has a whole bunch of different settings, and then it has other other birds where you can actually go in there and customize as far as what setting you want. So what I actually do, like for example, if you just want chicken, you just hit the chicken, and then just hit enter, and it automatically starts the program for chicken. And essentially what that does is it'll like rotate the eggs, and it'll have the specific temperature and humidity for the full time except for the last 3 days. And the last 3 days it changes the temperature and humidity and stops turning. And then you just come back in 21 days and you have chickens in there, and the hatch rate is really high on these Arcoms, which is pretty crazy. And to actually fill up the water, you have to actually you can actually take them all apart, and you can look inside. It actually has like a water tray on either side that fills up the water. So all you have to do, you just keep checking the water on these, and you just add water right in the hole every 2 or 3 days to make sure the water level is right on this. And it's super automatic. It's pretty amazing. And for the reptile ones, you don't really have the turning. I'm not sure on the price on the reptile ones, and I don't think they're as big as the Arcom 50s. But the other problem with this is I think the humidity only goes up to about 60% maximum as far as the setting that you can set the humidity for. So I don't know if you could technically hatch reptile eggs in this one. Although what you probably could do is you could actually have little egg boxes, like really shallow ones. If you're hatching like smaller eggs, turn off the turning and then just set the temperature and use it that way. So this thing, let me tell you, I've had so many eggs. At one point I think I had like 4 of these. I was hatching so many eggs. I had my whole barnyard full of eggs. I was hatching all my own chicken eggs, and then I put them out in the barnyard, and then I'd have people come over and we'd all run around and catch the little baby chickens. And that was a blast. And at one point I actually sold all my incubators pretty much for almost exactly what I paid for them. And then just a couple years ago, I bought another one because I got back into chickens and ducks. But let me tell you, if you want pretty much the best of the best and you want just something small to kind of play around with for reptile eggs, let me tell you, these Arcoms are definitely the best and the most accurate as far as the temperature. And if you actually get the reptile ones that are specific for the reptiles, they'll actually go up to the proper humidity. I think they go all the way up to like 99% humidity on the reptile ones. So those are really designed for the reptiles, versus this one you could probably modify a little bit to hatch reptile eggs. But you know, if you're actually looking for the reptile ones, I'd actually go with the ones specific for reptiles. But those are pretty awesome high-tech units. Alright, so here's probably the easiest and the cheapest way that you can make a snake egg incubator, especially if you have a whole bunch of eggs. You're like, what do I do with these eggs? I'm looking for a place to put them. You can actually convert just a regular ice chest to convert it into a snake egg incubator. And you can use anything from, like, this one is like a $350 Yeti 65, which is a little extreme for incubating snake eggs. Or you can go all the way down to like one of the $20 styrofoam coolers that you can get pretty much anywhere. Essentially what you want to do to convert this is you just take everything out of the cooler, and then what you want to do is you want to add just a few inches of water right in the bottom. And I've actually seen a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll get like an aquarium heater, one of the submersible aquarium heaters, and they'll dial it into 88 degrees or 90 degrees, somewhere in that range, to heat all the water in here to 88 or 90 degrees. And then what I've actually seen a lot of people do is they'll take bricks and put a brick on each corner where the brick sticks up out of the water just a little bit, and then on top of the brick they'll actually take one of the egg crate and put it up on top where you can actually still see the water underneath. So if you need to add some water, you can just pour it right in. And then on top of the egg crate, I've actually seen some people, some people I've actually seen where they put the eggs right on top of the egg crate. But what I would probably do is I would go back to the egg incubation boxes, the little shoe boxes with the vermiculite and the water and the press and seal, where you can actually have it completely contained, so you can really control the humidity around the eggs inside of that incubation box. Well, let me tell you, this is probably the easiest way to do it. And then you just close it up and come back in 2 months. make sure you don't run out of water, so your heater doesn't run out. And probably what I would do is I would run like a little temperature probe, maybe with an alarm on the front, so you can make sure that water stays at the right temperature, and then alarms if it goes out of the range. But let me tell you, this is probably the easiest way to set up a snake egg incubator on a budget in a short amount of time. All you really need is just a cooler, and then you just need an aquarium heater. And I wouldn't think you'd need that big of an aquarium heater, just something big enough to heat up a few gallons, which should be pretty inexpensive. Alright, so here's the last one I wanted to show you. This is kind of tucked back in a little storage space down here in my basement that's not really used that much. And this is as a matter of fact, if my main incubator went out, I would probably use this one. This one I got free from a laboratory cleanout. This is actually a VWR Scientific. And I would imagine that this one would probably have the best control as far as really controlling the temperature. And right now I'm just using it as storage. I just store my vermiculite in there for if I run out of vermiculite. So this is pretty cool. You can actually open up the main door, and then it has a glass door where you can actually look inside without completely opening it up. And then it has this one where you can actually open this one up, and it has several different levels where you can put your egg boxes right in there. But you can pretty much use anything as long as you can control the temperature, and then you just use the egg boxes. This is like a complete sealed egg box, and this one I'm sure is completely dried out. You just have to add like 150 grams of water in this one to rehydrate it, and it'll be ready to go as far as putting some eggs in there. So that's pretty much it. Those are the incubators that I have kind of kicking around my house, and then I've seen people build. Really easy. You can use pretty much anything. I'd say probably the easiest one is the styrofoam cooler with a fish tank heater, and you go all the way up to, you know, anything you can find, like an old fridge or like a beverage cooler, or even something like this. Sometimes you can find these for free or really cheap as far as something like this. So that is pretty much it. Those are the incubators that I just wanted to show you, just in case you have some Ball Python eggs that you need to throw in an incubator. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.